I've been playing. I'm trying to get my head around Endless Legend. Have you played this?
I have played it before, yes, but only briefly and a long time ago.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's as a casual thing. I'm trying to get my head around it. It looks so basically. It looks very much like Civ 5, but very sort of fantasy magic type background to it all. Various weird races and magical crystals and things. And weird magical technologies as well. And you look at it on the face of it, like I did. I mean, I was supposed to pick it up cheapo in a Steam sale or something a while back, and I thought, oh yes, have a go at this. Plunge on into it, think, oh yeah, this is just a kind of fantasy Civ 5, and just spent about 150 turns doing really badly and losing. So it's one of those games that sort of tricks you into thinking you know how to play it when you don't.
One of those.
Yeah. There's lots of things in there. It's like they've taken Civ 5 itself, and which itself has gone out of its way to try and not be Civ 4. You know, the game everyone knows and knows how to play and has played lots of. And so it's got all sorts of weird mechanics in there that really punish you for playing it like it was a game of Civ. So I'm trying to get my head around and understand what it's actually doing and how it's all different and what it means. So, a number of core differences. The world map is divided up into regions.
Okay.
This is a strange mechanic. Each one, you zoom out and it's got this sort of great sort of parchment map effect when you zoom right out, when you zoom in. It's these really gloriously detailed little sort of hexagon landscape. It's a game that looks fantastic. Really, really nice sort of look and feel to it all. But yeah, it's got these regions. You only allow one city in each region.
Fair enough.
Each region is named, and the city sort of, I think the city doesn't. No, city takes its own name, but you're not allowed to put more than loads and loads of cities everywhere and go crazy on expansion like that. You have to sort of conquer each region and put one city in it. You can grow the city by adding districts to it, which take the hexagon next to the city, and it grows organically like that. So one city in one region can be quite big, and presumably takes the sort of mathematical function of having multiple cities in an area, but much more rigidly defined. So that already starts to mess with my usual, let's just make a massive plain full of industrial centres that can churn out tanks and redirect them all to one place type gameplay, which is hard work. Then you got this. I mean, you got they're really quite harsh on the Doom stack as well, and it seems like every sort of Civ type game designer these days is desperate to stop a massive pile of Apache attack helicopters just stomping around the map, killing everything.
Well, the thing that's completely overbalanced and means you just wander across the map, completely killing everything.
It's the basics. It's the basic business of the game. That's the problem, though. That is how to play and win at Civ. So when they decide, oh no, we don't want to do that in our game because reasons, then what you're doing there is effectively is creating an entirely different sort of game. So that's their prerogative as game designers. You can do that, certainly. So you've got, I think, to begin with, you can only have 4 units on the same. So I think with Civ 5, you can't even put 2 things in the same. No,
just one, I believe.
2 things in the same hexagons because they're really desperate to try and get you to buy into and engage into the my units gain levels and XP, and every time they gain a level you can choose a little perk for them, and that's just wasted. You just don't care about any of that at all if you're churning out vast numbers of foot troops whose primary function is to die and take some people with them.
Take more people with
exactly. I don't want to have to care about my armies. I'm a ruthless despot with no humanity whatsoever. I shouldn't have to nurture each individual unit and track their progress and care and feel sad when they die. That's not the purpose. But no, so I mean, they've really developed that in Endless Legend as well, because you've got this sort of unit editor screen, and you can actually give them equipment.
Wow.
You've got little paper doll slots for a weapon, some armour, a trinket, and so on, and those all sort of come off of the tech tree and the various strategic resources you've got.
So you give an armour a hammer.
Oh. Well, they got a sword. Get out there! I don't care. What do you want me to blinking provide you with the fancy dandy armour as well? So you got heroes as well. They got the same kind of strategy. They got a little levelling chart as well. Every time they gain XP and gain levels, you can buy perks on these different grid thing as well. And again, they got the same sort of, you can give them equipment as well. It's like they've tried to sort of give it RPG elements, but it's a difficult thing to get your head around, really, because they desperately want you to really care and develop and work with individual units that you've got. This is further sort of complicated by the whole city upkeep happiness thing. So each of your cities has a little thumb symbol happiness rating, and that's, how contented they are, which is fine. You build them things like sewers, and they don't hate you.
Yeah.
Which, okay, I'm willing to go that far in my tyrannical overlord regime, but then you are really, really punished very harshly indeed for expansion in Endless Legend.
Oh, I hate when they do that as well.
Yeah. So already you can only have one city per region.
Yeah.
So you think, all right, well, I'll scout out all these different regions around me, and I'll capture each one, put a city in each one, and every time you do that, you take a 10% hit on happiness for all the existing cities.
Don't like that.
I don't know. Perhaps there's some technology further along the tree that really, that sort of mitigates that, or perhaps you can build more and more, amphitheatres and coliseums and whatever to make them happier. But I mean, I'm sort of in the early to mid game, and I haven't really seen a lot that does that. This is sewer, and there's a few other bits and pieces here and there that can give you sort of plus ratings, largely to do with things that are in the terrain around you. Like local spice fields or whatever can make them happy. One of the early games I thought I was doing very well. I'd conquered about 7 or 8 regions, and that actually brought my unhappiness down to the point where my original capital just revolted.
Yeah.
So it really wants you to build up and not out. It's like every design decision that I've seen in this game so far is absolutely counter to the traditional game of Civ 4. The go out everywhere, doom stacks and vast.
Totally against every way you want to play.
Well, I suppose, and who's at fault there? Obviously me, because I'm not approaching their game the correct way. But yeah, so that's all a bit weird. So then you've got you've got the usual research trees, technology and so on, and except this time it's wheels. You've got a number of different eras. I think there's about 8 of them, or something like that. And within that there are about 10 to 15 technologies within each era.
Yeah.
You only need 8 of them to advance to the next era.
Okay.
And the ones in the next era are presumably much more powerful but more costly to do, and so on and so on and so on. So already you're starting to think. So another thing I do in in these games is I research everything and backfill upwards.
Yeah.
I don't just pick one strand and go all the way up. I want all of the improvements and all of the underpinning infrastructure before I move forward, which means that I'm generally sort of behind on the technological race to the end, but then I curve up quite quickly because I've got all of those technologies as you go up. I don't have to choose from them. It's something I didn't like with Master of Orion 2. In that, you do your scientific research, and each time you complete the research next rung, as it were, it offers you a choice of 3 different technologies to pick from, and the other 2 just go away. You can trade with other enemy players or other empires or whatever to get those back from the ones you discovered, but you have basically constantly having to make choices all the way up, and I have all sorts of anxiety about that. I worry I'm picking the wrong choice each time, which is often why I play the Trilarians. I don't know. There's a particular race in Master of Orion 2 whose special racial perk is that they get all of the choices each time they get the research. So I always play them normally because it's not a cheat. It's a racial advantage. There's other advantages I don't see an interest in that other race choices are picking. So so you got this eras thing, so that seems to be punishing players who like to backfill technologies. It's just this almost perfect storm of ways not to play Endless Legend to do well that you've learnt from all sorts of other games of a similar type. I suppose, I don't know, is it a good thing to be different for the sake of it, to create variety, to make your game stand out, or are you just being obtuse at that point?
Well, it depends. If
our game is very much like all these other games, except we've changed the numbers around,
or it was made by someone who didn't like those other things.
It's entirely possible.
To,
I suppose we're getting into weird discussions of authorial intent, and I have no idea what these people were thinking when they made the game. So all I can say is whether I'm enjoying it or not.
Games.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sort of getting the hang of it. It's having to learn new things, I suppose, which I resent on principle because I'm quite old and lazy. So, but I've got a game on the go at the moment where I'm just really sort of dialing it back and really focusing inward, which seems to be overall what they're trying to do. I mean, the game there's a lot of other things that make the game quite interesting and unique, but also quite tricky as well. They have summer and winter. So there's 2 seasons on this planet. Okay. And they happen...
It just sort of happens suddenly.
Yes.
Clang.
Yes, yeah, it does. Literally. There'll be a turn and suddenly, boom, it all goes snowy, and you suddenly take a horrific amount of upkeep penalties to everything. All your units drop down to about 1 move per turn and can't see any distance. You suddenly find yourself hemorrhaging vast amount of dust, which is their money, the magical dust that this world is made of. You just start. I mean, the first game when this happened, it really took me by surprise. It's like, oh my god, what's going on here? I suddenly dropped from like plus 30 gold a turn down to about minus 40 or something.
Yeah.
It's that kind of harsh switch over. I was selling off stuff, disbanding armies just to try and break even, and then that meant that when summer came around again, you had to try and raise all your armies and build everything up again. Which I don't know, but probably a function of me overextending too quickly. But it's a really harsh mechanic. You can see it in the little next turn button's got a counter on there, but it's not. It will be winter in 3 turns. It will be winter in 11 to 15, 11 to 25 turns time, and you don't know, somewhere within that span there'll be boom. Suddenly everything costs 8 times as much, and you can't.
That sounds
move.
annoying.
It is very annoying, but I suppose if you know it's coming and you get the hang of it, you can learn to work around it. Don't build up too many armies and so on. But then it's telling me off for not having cities building stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, this city's not producing anything and stuff. I know, that's because I don't want it to go winter and suddenly have to disband everything. I've built all the useful stuff. So yeah, it's an odd game, very odd. So you've got this I can't remember what they call it. It's like native villages. So these take the sort of function of the barbarian outpost type things from your Civ games. See, making comparisons to Civilization is just going to get you in trouble with this game. It really is. It looks superficially enough to trick you into playing it badly if you're any good at Civilization, which is an interesting thing. So yeah, each of your regions has a number of native villages, and those have various different types of races in them. Yeah. Native races, sort of crystal people or walrus men or minotaurs or whatever. And you can do quests for them. You can just steam in there and raise it to the ground through combat, or you can parlay, which then they'll give you a little mini quest to go and do, like come back and give us 15 emeralds, which is a strategic resource, or we want these ruins cleared, or rescue some of our people from another native village, and so on. And if you do those, that then pacifies those villages in that region, which means they stop sending wandering armies out to attack you all the time.
Okay.
And then if you've got a city in that region and they're pacified, they can actually join your empire. They will give you an extra little person in the city window, which lets you move people about between the different types of production. So sort of science, industry, food, that kind of thing, standard mechanic. And also you can then start to build their unit. The like the crystal people, you can actually build a crystal golem things that can actually become part of your stack of an army. So you're sort of working around with these native villages, which I suppose take the sort of part barbarian. I mean, I think Civ 5 had a whole bunch of independent mini empires which had a similar kind of feel to them. You could try and work the faction bar for them, and they would give you stuff if they liked you lots. It's a strange game, and I want to like it a lot more than I presently do. I mean, it's to the point where I am trying to put the effort in to get the hang of how it works and try and make some kind of headway in there. I've cranked it down a difficulty level because it's this is it. I mean, I just plunged in there on normal difficulty. I thought, this will be easy. I've played Civ before. No, my God, it's all going terribly wrong again. And after sort of 2 or 3 goes of completely over tipping my resources and ratios, it's just right. Hang on, let's crank the difficulty down a bit while I actually learn how to play this thing, because despite its superficial similarities to Civ and whatever, all the rest of these other sorts of games, it is its own game. It has its own set of rules in a way, and it's played on a similar kind of board, but the pieces all do different stuff and there's different rules I'd never heard of. It's that kind of thing. Someone invented their own game that uses chessboard and chess pieces. You'd think, okay, I know how chess works. Oh my God, what's going on here? Someone's decided to just take the basic building blocks and concepts and just totally subvert them.
Did you do the tutorial?
I did do the tutorial, yeah, and it did sort of explain some of this stuff, but obviously perhaps I wasn't taking it seriously enough. I don't know. Maybe I need to do it again. I like the aesthetic of it, though. I mean, certainly the tiles and landscape looks fantastic. There's some great effects, like as you're uncovering terrain, it all sort of morphs up and down as mountains become revealed. And then when you mouse wheel out, it goes from the sort of lush hexagon detailed terrain with all the little resources and sparkles and things on it, turns into an actual parchment map with the regions all outlined and so on. And you can play it from that view as well. And that's quite seamlessly integrated with the mouse wheel, which is nice. And I just want to like it because there's a lot of good, interesting things. Mind you, I find myself utterly uninterested in the tactical combat. So when 2 armies meet, it goes into tactical combat mode, and that's interesting because that's actually played out on the world map.
Okay.
Instead of it going off to some mini zoomed in instance which represents some typical terrain of the hex you're on, it is actually all the hexes that you are around where the two armies meet, and they sort of spread out and start using those as basically the scale changes, and individual units are on different hexes of that surrounding region, and then when the battle's finished they all sort of run back to where they were in the middle. So you're taking the battles are taking place on the overview map, and presumably the terrain there, different heights of terrain or cliffs or whatever can block movement in the tactical combat as well. But at the end of the day, it is just units stood on a hex grid, and they take turns to roll a dice at each other, and you move them about. I mean,
it's not Total War.
No, not at all. It's not any kind of real-time RTS type combat. It is entirely abstract and representative, and I'm just never really that interested in that kind of combat. I mean, it comes up a lot in things like Heroes of Might and Magic and similar games of that sort, but so but it does give you the auto mode, so you can pick offensive, defensive, or a third one, I can't remember what that was, and then just pick auto and click go, and it will just do the dice rolls and present you with the results instantly. So you can totally skip that bit if you like, and I'm just not that fascinated with it really. So yeah, it's an interesting game, but it does sort of play with you a bit. It does subvert the normal thinking, I think, compared to yet another Civ. It is not yet another Civ game, but it looks like one.
Yeah.
Have you played Into Space?
Yes.
Is that any good?
It's okay. It has issues of it not being the game I want it to be.
I think it's something they do.
Yeah.
They take the standard tropes and they just do strange things with them, and that can be admirable. It can be a good thing, because if you're tired of yet another Civ game, then this is not yet another Civ game. It is something entirely of its own, really. It just looks like a Civ game. But on the other hand, the downside of that is mind you, I had almost exactly the same kind of culture shock crashing from being a seasoned Civ 4 player into trying Civ 5 for the first time and not having a clue what any of it meant or did. Because
that was a big change.
I think they had the same, the people who made Civ obviously have of a similar opinion that, oh God, yet another Civ game. But you're the people who make Civ games. That's what we want from a Civ game.
Also, if no one's allowed to change, they have to do what they've done before forever.
Well, I don't know. I suppose if you're that far into a series, then I suppose you're doing the same thing again and again. I don't know, but you have to take it on its own merits, what it presents itself as, and decide and give it a fair crack of the whip, I suppose. And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get my head around it, and I think it's going better this last game. Obviously, cranking the difficulty down helps a bit. You don't have enemy empires who know what they're doing, charging straight in on turn 30 with declaration of war. I was like, oh God, I barely understand how to mine fish. I mean, I don't want to have to deal with complex war strategies and a military logistics. I don't know. No, that didn't work. So it's interesting. I don't know.
Do you like it?
I don't know. This is the thing. I want to like it, and I can see myself starting to understand it, and it seems to be going a bit better. But that could just be because I'm on idiot difficulty. Do you wish you were playing Civ 4? No, not really. No, I want to. I suppose I do want something different, but it's having to learn something different as I go. So that's endless legend there. Then it's interesting. I like because it has a certain story aspect to it as well. Because each of the different empires has quite an interesting and unique aesthetic. They're not just the elves, the dwarves, etc. Yeah. They've each got this little story set as chain story missions, which present you with some sort of civilization-wide tasks to do in order, and it does a bit more prose as each one unlocks. And I've gone with the Ardent Mages, who are a kind of they're a society obsessed with the power of pain and magic, a sort of masochist empire who use pain to fuel their magics, and they're really into the science tech stuff. So I think they are the sort of scientific empire. There's a bunch of long-eared, sort of rabbit-eared, druid-type tree people who have a big affinity with nature. There's I think vault dwellers, not actual similar to Fallout. They've come from some underground vault thing that got bust open during an earthquake, and they're out and about exploring the world. And there's another load who are the descendants of a crashed spaceship crew, trying to rebuild whatever. So it's like they've taken again. It's all the standard. Here are your dark elves, here are your dwarves, here are your noble humans, and they've just thought, no, we're not going to do any of that. so again, and look, there's no standard sorts of resources. Glass steel, what's that? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
still made of glass.
It's very magic-y, but almost everything about the game is not quite what you'd expect, which is unusual and interesting. And I thought, yeah, okay, it'll just be some, quite pretty and aesthetically pleasing looking Civ type game, and it's nice, turning out to be something quite different. It's turning out to be its own game, which is interesting. So yeah, I think I recommend it. I don't know. I'll give it some more go and see how I get on, I guess. But yeah, I recognise it is a good game. It's whether I can be bothered to learn another set of rules and another system. I don't know. But I suppose I'd be probably quite cross if it was just Civ 4 with different names on everything.
So would Civ 4.